Oh, yeah. Fish on. Yeah. Oh, my God. Good night. Look at that tank. That's a toad, brother. Golly.
Good evening, sir. It looks like you've got some company, and on top of that, you've got a busy week before you get ready to roll down here to Polk County.
Man, first and foremost, welcome to the show tonight. You guys do me a favor, whatever platform you're watching on, share it, comment with where you're watching from, city and state, if you don't mind. That way we can kind of get an idea of who's where and who's watching and who's what and all that good stuff. But yeah, I got my good buddy here, Jameson Redding. Jameson's also Jackson Kayak brand manager. And, when I reached out to him at the beginning of the year and said, hey, I want to start doing these kayak reviews, we struggled to get a NAR over here for the review, but I was able to hook up with one of the reps and do that. We've had Jameson on the show a couple months ago to talk about that and kind of talk about the process. But when I reached out to him and said, man, I really want to give this Cusa X a shot, I plan on spending a bunch of time on the river this year. Several times Austin this year has said, yeah, I don't even think I'm lake fishing this year. I think I'm just going to live on the river. And so when the Cusa X was announced, kind of like behind the scenes a little bit in the industry, right before it goes public, I reached out to him and was like, dude, I've got to get a Cusa X. He's like, bro, I got you. I'm not going to put you. I got you at the front of the line. Unlike with the NAR, I will bring you the boat myself. So big shout out to all the manufacturers out there that are really supporting what we're trying to do here on the channel, which is to provide all the information that we possibly can about all the brands. But I got to say, none of you guys delivered it in person. Jameson delivered it in person, was in the video to make sure I didn't screw up. So
ultimately,
take
Chad
notes.
has beer in his camper. Yeah. So that's what actually
it's beer and or bourbon.
Yeah,
and
some of that too.
And don't let him blow smoke. He actually went and picked all that up right before the live stream. He was like, is it okay to drink on the show? I'm like, we are adults. So as long as we're behaving responsibly, yes, we can do that.
And you're not driving.
So I'm going to put Jameson on hold.
Austin's driving right now. Right. We're just in the back.
I'm going to put Jameson on hold for just a second. And then we're going to run through some updates real quick on what's going on with kayak bass fishing. We have the kickoff next weekend, Polk County, Florida, Camp Mac. If you guys haven't signed up yet and you plan on doing so, please do so. There's a Trail 1 sign up, a Trail 2 sign up. If you finished in the top 10% of any event last year, you're eligible for the 10 Invitational. The winner of the 10 Invitational wins their way into the KBF or the DZ KBF to 10. And we also have a new promotion this year. Lots of folks want 2-day tournaments. Lots of folks want the 1-day tournaments since we're so spread out around the country that when you do 2 tournaments in one weekend, you get 2 of your 4 required Angler of the Year events out of the way. But everybody also really wants to know how people perform on the 2-day, basis. I think Bass went to a 2-day format this year. Hobie's a 2-day format. We've had 2-day formats for our championships for a long time before we went to a 3-day format for some of the championships. And I personally like the 2-day format, but I also understand that we have to create balance. And because we have limited opportunities around the country, the 1-day format allows folks to get, again, those multiple checks in the box. So what we did this year is we put together the Dakota Lithium Double Up. So it's a $100 entry fee. So think of it as a side pot. And in that side pot, we got a youngin' over here watching TikTok. In that side pot, you're basically putting a $100 entry fee in for up to $6,000 or right at $6,000 in guaranteed payouts. So if you go to any of the event pages, there's a little graphic that shows you it's, the $2,000 for first place and then how it kind of goes down from there. So anyway, make sure that you read up on that on the event page before you sign up because you don't want to leave that money on the table. Next up is I will be heading over to Wendell Fishing for his live stream tonight. Right after this, we'll put the link in the description box and in the chat. I just posted on my Instagram story or on the Kayak Bass Fishing Instagram story with the link to it. And I'll also post a link on Facebook right before we go live. That's 7:30 Central Standard Time, 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. So pretty much right after this show. And so I don't have any clue what we're going to talk about on there. He basically wanted me to come on, and we're just going to talk kayak fishing. But Wendell is one of the guys, or Darren of Wendell Fishing is one of the guys that stepped up and is going to be one of the teams for the Knucklehead Bass Fishing Series. So the Knucklehead Bass Fishing Series, for those of you who haven't heard of it yet, you just go to Fishing Chaos and scroll down until you see the Knucklehead Bass Fishing logo, like Randy just pulled up there. It looks just like that. Same thing, Knucklehead Bass Fishing Series. You click on that, and when you go to register, you pick the team of the influencer or celebrity, if you want to call it that you want to fish for a chance to win your way onto their team. And then Veterans Day weekend, we're going to all fish off in a team format. It's going to be each YouTuber, or, for example, we've got Clay Guida, who just signed up, who's a UFC, celebrity. Doesn't have a YouTube channel, but he's got a huge social media following on the other platforms. So he's going to be captaining a team, Team Guida. And we're all putting together prize packages for the folks that compete in our individual events. And then it's going to culminate in a charity event with a pretty good payout, $10,000 guaranteed right now for the people on the team. So it's a 4-person team plus the captain. So 5 people, best 5 fish, but the 4 members of the team split the money, not the YouTuber or the celebrity. We basically are fishing for the entry fees along the way, donating a portion to charity. I'm fishing for Heroes on the Water. Each of us are fishing for different charities, but we'll be putting more information out about that. But click on the Knucklehead Bass Fishing Series on Fishing Chaos. You can learn more about it. And we'll be talking more about it and bringing some of the knuckleheads on, as we get a little bit closer to it. Gene and I, Fluke Master is obviously going to be one of the hosts, and we're going to be first to kick ours off in March. And then I think everybody else is going to kick theirs off in April or later. And it's going to be 4 months. It's going to be basically from March till September. And then we're going to have the team set. And then we're going to come down here to Huntsville, Alabama, fish Wheeler and Guntersville Lake for a bunch of money, and have a big fish camp, get together, Veterans Suicide Awareness Weekend. And it's just going to be a lot of fun. And we're going to just keep adding YouTubers and influencers and folks like that. In fact, I should probably twist his arm and get him involved. After the Knucklehead Bass Fishing Series, we've decided to just start announcing some fun things that basically we take our sponsorship support, give them some promotion, and give back, to KBF members. So everybody always has a hard time keeping up with their biggest fish of the year. And it's always been interesting to see what your top 10 fish would be, for the season. And so we launched the Toreto Top 10 this year. Any fish that you caught in KBF competition, you can actually go out and go to that leaderboard and you can enter it. Even if you caught it January 1st when the state challenges kicked off. If you fish in a Ambassador Series event, any event where that fish was already accepted by another kayak bass fishing event or kayak bass fishing Ambassador Series, it doesn't matter if it's on Fishing Chaos or Tourney X or whatever, tournament management system was used, you can upload that photo and input the link. And we're going to give away 2 Toreto motors. Well, 2 minimum. If we get a great response to this, we might even add more. But first and foremost, we're going to give away 1 Toreto 1103 full motor system. It's almost a $3,000 value to the person that catches the 10 biggest fish over the course of the year. A lot of tournament anglers catch big fish, but a lot of tournament anglers are fishing for numbers. This is going to be who can catch the 10 biggest fish throughout the season. And of course, we knew we were going to get a lot of blowback from the Northeast and from the Midwest and from the, the places that are like, oh, we can't compete with Florida and California and Texas and all those other, places where they have big fish. So we're going to draw the second prize from everybody that enters 10 fish, regardless of how big they are. So you've got just as good a chance of winning, regardless of how big the fish you catch are, provided that you enter 10 fish into the Toreto Top 10 Challenge. And literally the first day that I posted it, somebody suggested, oh, you should do one for just smallmouth, or oh, you should do one for the Northeast, or oh, you should do one for that. We will do that. You guys help me make this thing successful the way it is, and then we can build on it from there. So don't just go, oh, I live, in Rhode Island. We don't have big enough fish, so what's the point? You can enter 10 fish. You help us grow the event. You help us show the numbers to the sponsor, and then I can twist their arm and say, hey, I need 1 motor for above the Mason-Dixon line and 1 for below, or maybe we need 4 motors and divide the country up into regions. But we got to start somewhere. And really, I just wanted a board where everybody can show their top 10 biggest fish for the season, because being able to say you caught the 10 biggest fish of the season for KBF and all the ambassador series for the nation, that's a pretty big deal. And we're going to get a trophy made for it. That's going to be pretty impressive. And it's just going to be a lot of fun. And it's another event, no entry fee, fun, and opportunity to win some cool prizes. I think that's it for now. We've obviously got the challenge series going. Be sure to sign up for February if you haven't done so yet. Got the weight loss challenge. Just head over to Fishing Chaos. Click on the little side thing over here. Click on Trail Club on the side. And once you click on Trail Club, Kayak Bass Fishing opens up. Click on that, and then click on that tournaments button in the middle. And there's just a ton of stuff going on. So just click on there, look around. We also have a lot of this stuff linked up on the homepage of our website under the Compete tab. And then each series, for those of you that go, man, that guy talked about so much stuff, I have no idea what's going on. Just click on the drop down at the top of the website, and each series has a very specific, well laid out, well written, and very heavily edited by our ambassador teams, and lots of eyeballs and input went into making it as easy to understand as possible. So all that stuff's explained on the website. So Jameson drove over, brought a Cusa X that he's going to leave with me that I get to play with and get to kind of do with what I want. I'm going to give you my initial impression of this boat, and then I'm going to tell you kind of where the conversation went after he got here, because I don't think a lot of people see this side of the industry.
Right.
So I get the boat, I put it on the table. We're about to shoot our initial walkthrough video, and I'm still like a geek, like a little 12-year-old kid about this stuff when I start playing with these new toys. But at the same time, it's a little bit overwhelming. You get all these new boats, and you've got all this rigging to do. You got so many ideas that you don't really know what to do. And then as I get each idea, Jameson's like, oh, by the way, and you can take this and you can flip it around, you can put it over here. And you'll see that when we do the initial walkthrough video, when we release the initial walkthrough video, when you start talking about the way that the tri-track sets up on the Cusa. But I'll tell you this. The first thing that Jameson said when he got here was like, dude, I want to check out that River 119. So he climbs up on the trailer, starts looking around on it. Then he picks up the phone and calls Hans. And then they're having a conversation like, dude, I think that was genius what you did with this. And then Hans is going, well, I think what y'all did with this is awesome. And that's what people don't understand about the backstory of this sport. A lot of people see the toxicity out there in social media. They see people bashing each other and throwing knives, but generally it's not at the company level or at the people who are in the decision-making place. It's for whatever reason, it's these people who take up arms and they get their pitchforks and they get their torches on behalf of somebody that doesn't want them to do that. And so it's pretty cool to see Jameson climbing around on the River 119 going, ooh, that's cool. Ooh, that's cool. While I'm over on the table looking through the Cusa X and kind of geeking out at some of the features of that boat. So Jameson, basically before we jump into the full discussion, we expect this year to be the year of the river.
I think it's already there.
The table is set.
Yeah.
And I think that the only downside to it is now there's going to be a lot more people in the places that was kind of the last place that you could get away from freaking kayak anglers, which is fine because it still takes a special type, takes a special person to put in the work, the effort, the energy, to learn the skill sets, to do all those things, to run shuttles, to do all that stuff. So I'm going to shut up and let you talk about the concept of the Cusa X, where it came from, how it was designed, who went into influencing it. And then obviously I'm going to talk about a few features along the way. I just really want you to talk more about the concept, if you don't mind, of the Cusa X.
Well, I mean, you're right. I think that is kind of the whole thing about the whole entire sport of kayak fishing, especially for you and me more so now. But, spending time helping or educating or trying to inspire people to get into the sport, we are creating more people that go to these places that, we used to get to and not see anybody.
Right.
So, but it's because we're passionate about it and we want to share that passion with others. So we do it, and creating the boats to be able to help people do that. I think is part of that. But yeah, you're right. Like at the same time, you're like, okay, now I'm going to go to my hole and there's 5 other guys that weren't there 10 years ago. But that's the joy of it too, because now they're getting to enjoy something that we've spent so many years enjoying. And you influenced me back then to get into the sport, you and others. And so hopefully I'm doing that in a positive way. But yeah, to get into where the riverboat or where the Cusa X came from is obviously Jackson's history's Cusa. First fishing kayak we ever did was the Cusa, which was a very river specific, moving water specific boat. Small, nimble, a lot of rocker, which means, the boat's shaped kind of like a banana, which allows it to be nimble. And then that progressed into the Cusa HD, which kind of went almost, I don't want to say too far into a flat water boat, but it gave where the Cusa struggled was it didn't track that well. So it wasn't a very fast paddling boat. It was very, very river moving water specific. But people liked the features of the boat. So they were taking and trying to use the boat in other areas where the hull shape really wasn't designed to be. So the Cusa H kind of expanded on that and gave it a little more length, a little less rocker, still had a lot of volume in the bow to be able to ride over the waves if you got into a whitewater situation, but could be a more versatile boat that you could take to flat water. And I would say, that was still 6-7 years ago. And so it just kind of was time to revisit that platform. Things have changed. There's more accessories for track now. People like wide open deck space. There was ideas. So we knew we wanted to revisit that platform, revisit the river boat in our lineup. And the way we did it is we kind of put together a group of anglers from our team and got feedback. Like, what do you want on the river? What is missing in our current boat? What features do you want to see? What would make this easier, better for you, your experience, out there, not just from a hole shape standpoint, but like from a deck layout standpoint. And so we kind of put all those ideas together, and especially when those ideas kind of overlap, when you had 4 or 5 people asking for the same thing out of that group of 10 or so that we put together from our team, it was like, we should probably do that. Like, there's enough people asking for that makes sense. And so we had a great group of people, and I could sit here and name them, but I mean, Matt Ball, Russell Johnson, Bridget was involved, Gene Wilson down, and all these different river anglers.
Chris Funk.
Yeah. Like, I could go on and on. There's a great group. Chris Ricci. I'm going to miss some of them if I try to name them all, but they're from all over the country, and they all fish moving water. Some fish more smaller creeks and tighter water with more rapids. Others fish, like Gene down in Florida is fishing, flatter moving water, but still river fishing. It's still the same, river fishing. She's having to go up river, turn, get into tighter places, whatever. So we kind of put all that together and tried to come out with this platform. And that was kind of the concept of it, was to check all those boxes for everyone and still have that really what we're known for, making a very river specific boat. So if anything, we tried to go a little more nimble than the Cusa HD and kind of come in somewhere between the original Cusa and the Cusa HD to get it more river specific, but be able to have all those modern features that anglers want when it comes to rigging, electronics, motors, everything like that. So that's it in a nutshell.
Here's what's crazy. I think 3 or 4 companies went and sat down and started taking an assessment of where the industry was going and what categories were being neglected. And about 18 months ago to 2 years and I'll tell you guys, specifically on the River 119, a lot of people think it was like this quick response to the Shoaly or this other thing. But like, Hans has actually been with Bonafide for 2 different stints now. And that riverboat, same name, same everything, and same concept, was actually conceived about 5 years ago, 4.5, 5 years ago. And then what happened was, during the Bonafide merger with Big Adventures, it kind of fell by the wayside. And then when Hans came back to Bonafide, one of his first things was, I want to put that project back at the forefront. Yeah. So they started working on it. But he just wasn't happy with just making a basic riverboat. He was like, no, I want to make an advanced river river specific fishing boat, started working on some, some pretty drastic changes to the boat. And honestly, by the time it was all said and done, the original River 119 was going to be a little bit of a hybrid between the RS 117 and the SS 107. What ended up coming out was a brand new creature in the River 119. And I think it's awesome that a guy like that will sequester himself to work on the boat so he doesn't get influenced by other, things that are out there.
Yeah.
And then the same thing happens, with Crescent and with the Shoaly. And then the same thing happens with Jackson, because you guys don't understand. A lot of people don't understand. Don't let me generalize everybody, but nobody just decides to make a boat like this and has it in 6 months.
No,
it's just not how it works. So if that boat comes out, the argument like, oh, they stole that idea from this person. We've gotten to the point now where there's so many talented people, like what Jameson spoke to with the team. There's so many informed anglers, and there's willing anglers that are willing to say, no, this is not acceptable. I'm going to be straight with you guys. 8 years ago, somebody gets put on a pro staff. The company comes out with a boat and sends it to a pro staff, and they're like, this boat is great, because they didn't want to rock the boat. They didn't want to provide negative feedback. They wanted to improve their standing as a pro staffer. There was always the rebels and folks, like myself and Jeff Little and you and some others. But now it's pretty much everybody on these pro staff understands that this process of speaking up and saying what you want is cumulative to coming out with the better product.
Yeah.
But more importantly, the companies are now open to it, because in the past, and again, he can attest to this, what I'm about to say, because we've actually talked about it offline. For a long time, there wasn't a Jameson Redding or a Hans Newts or a Luther Cyphers or a, insert talented designer and product maker, insert name here, that did it. So there was always this weird disconnect between trying to explain to the designers what we wanted as anglers and being anglers that are actually driving the design.
Yeah.
And probably for about 10 or 12 years, the company would design the boat, come up with the concept, get it so close to being finished that none of the input really mattered, because they would ask you what you thought, but it was too late to change it. And they had gone out and asked all the dealers what they thought before, and asked all the sales reps what they thought before. So by the time it got to the anglers, it was too late. And so what Bonafide has done, what Jackson's done, and exactly what James and Crescent did with Drew, is took that process and flipped it the way it should be. Get the input from the anglers first. Let's batch the features that everybody wants. Let's see which ones are redundant in the different people. Pare that down and say, all right, now how do we make all these things work? And it's so crazy. We were talking about this today. We actually threw the Cusa on the trailer with the River 119, and was just standing there kind of walking around looking at the different hull designs and the different shape and the different, the different approaches to trying to accomplish the same thing. And, I'll be straight with you. I think that the Shoaly is going to be the most maneuverable. I think that the River is going to be the most complete before it goes onto the water. In other words, the least amount of stuff you're going to have to do. But I think the Cusa X is going to be the most versatile canvas, where with the tri-track and the open cockpit and the tri-track going across in the back, and the fact that it's wider than any of the others, it's the best blank canvas if you're not the type of person that likes to manufacture to decide where everything is for you. And they've come up with some really clever stuff. What are the clips called again?
The quick clips.
The quick clips. Yeah. Those things are clever. The rod stagers are clever. I've never been a fan of the little covers that go on the outside from any manufacturer. I'm not just picking on Jackson or, whatever. Like Bonafide has them for the P127, and I don't like them. I think they're kind of crazy.
The rod tip protector.
Yeah, the rod tip protectors on the outside, where your rod is on the outside, and if you try to paddle, you're catching your reel handles. It's just never made sense to me, and it's just not something that I really use. But the way that it was brought into the inside of the cockpit, and you still got room there. The fact that you could even take the little quick clips and the rod stagers out and just lay your reels on the deck like a lot of people used to do, and having that high-low seat, you know, Jackson was the first to the market with the true high-low seat. You know, we were all racing back then to get to the market with the first true high-low seat. You know, I was pushing the design of the Commander. We had the seat that folded down and slid in so you could sit in the high position, but we didn't have the true high-low seat like Jackson did. And Jackson pushed the lawn chair to popularity, but I got to give credit where credit's due. It was actually Diablo Kayak that was the first one to put that lawn chair style stadium seat on a boat. And when Native saw that, and when Jackson saw that, they both kind of come to the market with that lawn chair style seat around the same time, you know, with the Ultimate and with the Cusa, and it's just become, you know, the industry standard. But what's also crazy cool about this this industry is, even though we might be paddling different boats and we might compete in certain categories, a lot of people forget we also have great relationships where we're on the same team, like not just from a figure of speech, but literally. So Jameis and I were on Team NRS together for a long time, Team Bending Branches together. We've been Yak Attack team ambassadors together from, you know, pretty much the get-go of both of our careers with Toreto. So we have more in common than we don't, right? Which is, I think, if we looked at life that way, you know, politically, fishing, recreationally, hobby-wise, we probably all have a hell of a lot more in common than we don't. And so if you look for reasons to, you know, be happy and reasons to be, you know, positive, you have to look for reasons to be, you know, pissed off and frustrated and angry and mad. And we all get sucked into it because that's the stuff that's pumped down our throat. So what I'm going around my elbow to get to my back pockets to say this is, like, what I love about what's happening in the industry right now is that 3 or 4 companies came together at the same time and said to themselves, there's a hole in the industry. We've all evolved over here to these big, giant lake boats, and we've almost all forgot about the riverboat. But then individually, simultaneously, come to market,
all come to the same conclusion
with a lot of the same features, some clever, like, oh man, that's clever. You know what I mean? If I had to point out kind of one from each boat, you know, the tri-track on the Jackson Cusa X and the raised hatch, the way that new hatch setup is, just really big standouts for me in that boat. The front roller and the true integration of the Anchor Wizard and the River 119 is phenomenal. And then with the Shoaly, you know, that front handle to drag strap thing is one of those, like, we always hook a drag strap to our front handle.
Yeah.
So making the front handle a drag strap is just genius. You know what I mean? It really is. But I think a lot of people try to nitpick on all the things that are the same. Oh, you know what? That's just like the dang on whatever. What you mean? Because it's plastic. It's shaped like a banana. It's got a front and a back. There's only so much you can change. But what a lot of people lose sight of is when Jameson goes to the drawing board with Team Jackson, they're talking about those other boats. They're like, this boat's got these features and this boat's got this feature. And when Bonafide goes to the table, they're assessing, you know, what's out there. And ultimately what happened is, in this one, everybody was in a silo because none of these boats are out there. Right. And by the time they come out, you know, it's too late to respond. I think I actually heard Hans ask you, dude, be honest, did you change anything once you saw our boat? And he's like, nope. In fact, you don't even have time.
No, and that was
change a
funny.
mold.
I think that was at ICAST, and you know, we hadn't announced that we were doing a riverboat, but rumors, people are assuming whatever. And Hans is like, look, man, I know you're doing a riverboat. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he's like, just tell me this. Do you have time, or are you planning to change anything now that you saw our boat come out? Which at that time, it was just like a very high up drone shot of the RVR. And I was like, I'll tell you that if we were to do a riverboat, which I'm not saying we are, that I wouldn't change anything, because we feel confident in any boat that we do when we work with team that we have good ideas and that we have good input. And it's very easy to look at other people's boats or to look at something and go, oh man, that was a good idea. But you really don't know if it was, or if it's just or maybe it's a good idea, but you don't know how the public's going to respond. But what you have to do is trust decisions that you make based on information you have. And the information we had was we have a great team of river anglers that have been river fishing for a long time, have been in the Cusa, have been in the Cusa HT, and know what they feel like is missing and know what they feel like they want. And that's what we delivered. And so even after looking at the RVR in person here, I still wouldn't change anything about our boat because of what I see on that boat. Not that there's not things, and even Hans, I was talking to him, there's things that we would like probably love to have, like who doesn't want a lighter boat that's cheaper, right? Who doesn't want to be able to have every feature or whatever that you bring up or come to the idea with? But you don't necessarily like look at another boat and go, I want to change this or that. But I do think that, now there's so many great options for people. So, I mean, you got to get on the water. You got to figure out what works best for you and fits what you're doing. And I think it's cool when we put those boats, like we didn't do it on purpose, but we were loading up the Cusa so you could take it to the water and try it out and do the review. But you already had the RVR on the trailer. So you put it on there and it's like, holy crap, like these are different boats. Like they couldn't be more different in some aspects, but at the same time, they're both designed to do very, very similar and even the same things in a lot of ways. So it's cool to me to see how people working in two different areas, essentially trying to solve very similar problems or attack certain situations, can come to the same conclusion, but in very different ways. And so it's really cool. And honestly, I think Hans is the same way. I know I am. I know a lot of other people like Blake from New Canoe. Like we're all enthusiasts and believe in this industry. So I get excited when I see a new boat. I don't care who made it. Like I want to go check it out. I want to go get in it. I want to paddle it. I want to see where the features are and be like, damn, that was a good idea. Or, I'm glad we did what we did because of this or that. Like it's just like you said. I mean, I can't get that out of me no matter how ingrained I am with one company. I still am going to appreciate smart ideas and cool, innovative ideas because that's what's driving the industry. And that's why you guys that are watching as anglers and us, even as people that get to take advantage of a lot of these products, get to have such cool products, is because good companies compete, which drives innovation and which allows us to keep, having these things that are cool and different and unique. You're like, when you look back and a boat comes out, you're like, how much more stuff can go on a kayak at this point? Like we've already done it. And now here we are 10 years later and it's like, holy crap. Like you never would have seen it.
Somebody thought of something new.
Yeah.
What's funny too, is that you came here last evening. We started talking and you actually told me, you're like, hey man, I don't know if you heard about Chuck Levi, a good friend of ours, had passed away right after the holidays. And then remembering Chuck and thinking about Chuck, and I actually want to stop for a second and say our prayers do go out to Chuck's family. Chuck was like a longtime friend, one of the OGs of kayak fishing. Yep. I ain't gonna lie, like I did a little bit of a snot cry when I went to bed last night because it kind of
it hit me hard.
It kind of hit me, but I started thinking back to the boondoggles. Right, it's one of the first places you and I hung out, aggressively. We've been woken in the middle of the night by fire ants tearing us up in our tent. We've gotten dang near drowned on the river together. Like we've done all these things. And I've got to say, first of all, big thank you to this guy, because Jackson was really the first kayak company outside of Bonafide and outside of Wilderness Systems that was like willing to work with me outside of the perception that like, but you're a Bonafide guy. And then conversely, I got to give a big shout out to the folks at Big Adventures and Luther, before that, for having the understanding to say, look, I want to go out there and teach, my audience and my community about all the boats so they make the best possible decision about the boat that they want, instead of overhyping our one or two features and acting like it's the end all be all. Like we want them to be happy as kayak anglers first. Right. Then they're going to speak better about the sport. If they get into a boat and hate it, then they're going to speak poorly of the sport. And so again, Jameson, big thank you to you, brother. Like he really convinced Jackson, like, no, his heart's in the right place. He just wants to talk about the boats. He's not trying to be a spy for Bonafide. And so I've gotten access to boats before they came out on the market. I've gotten the ability to go to the factory and see things and been involved in it. And, you know, I'm not going to, I guess I will sort of break my arm, pat myself on the back to say I've been able to do a really good job of kind of managing those lines. And it's almost like I've watched people with one hand and I know what they've got, and I've got the other one and I know what they got, and they're all betting into each other and having fun. But I know what both teams have. But it's fun to watch, because if you think about innovation and competition, if you write the word innovation and then you write the word competition underneath it, you take an arrow and you go from innovation to competition on this side, and then you take the curved arrow and you go from competition back to innovation. It creates this loop. And so what's funny is when I started thinking about Chuck and I started thinking about the boondoggle, about midday through the day today, when we started filming the boat walkthrough, we'd kind of sit here and coked and smoked a little bit this morning and drank way too much coffee, waiting on the rain to clear out. And it kind of hit me when I was thinking about the boondoggle. We all used to sit around the fire from 20 different brands, and just be like, man, you know what would be cool? If you could put a power pole on a fishing kayak. Come on, dude. Like, it was, all these ideas were just thrown out there. Yeah. So it's funny when I see on social media when I post a picture of the River 119 and there's a roller on there and there's 5 people that are like, yeah, I thought of that 7 years ago. Okay, cool. But you thought of it 7 years ago and it didn't make it to the market. And then there's tons of stuff that we've all thought about over the years that the market wasn't ready for yet. And the reason for that was manufacturing processes have changed. The tolerance of the companies for how long we can take to manufacture these boats has changed. You used to get one plug and then one prototype. Whatever adjustments you made them, and then the mold came in and you were stuck with it. And it's
still a little bit like that, because I don't think people understand, you know, it's a very expensive process, and it's a very time consuming process to run, you know, prototypes on this stuff. So a lot of it is you think and hope things will work, and then you send it and see what happens.
And people don't realize, like, on most prototypes, like, you're hand welding in the scuppers. You're doing a lot of the stuff that you can't do in a traditional boat that's built from a mold that's finished. And then you're taking guesses. And so I really applaud the entire industry. And actually, Jameson was one of the first people I reached out to when I started questioning a lot of the weight capacities on the boats. And I was like, dude, we got to address this, and everybody's got to get better, but I need your help to push the issue. Like, was the first person that responded and said, not only am I addressing it, I'm actually changing the weight capacity of a boat that's on the market. And that was huge, because honestly, I don't think anybody had done that before that. People had gone out and updated their website and put asterisks and clarified things. But to go out and say, you know what, you might be right. Let's go throw some weight on it and let's truly assess it. And if we're wrong, let's fix it. And Jackson did that. And so over the years, I've had the pleasure of being able to try out the Blue Sky. Jackson has actually donated another Blue Sky for us to use for fish ops, to take up to the team at Catch, to outfit it for taking an angler that is wheelchair bound, or for track chairs and things like that, onto that platform, so we can use that to get, you know, those folks that need it, the adaptive paddling ability to get out and do what we all love. And so, again, thanks for that, man. That was amazing. He called me and was like, dude, I got a Blue Sky for you if you can use that for your program. And we're picking it up in February when we go up to the Indiana show. I'm taking it up to the Catch headquarters, and they're going to start working on engineering that thing to where we can get those veterans that need that extra stability, that need that type of platform, you know, out on the water, which is one of the reasons that I've always kind of been averse to people that turn their nose up and go, that's not a real kayak, or you add a motor to it, it ain't real. And all of those things, which is fine. If you don't want to put a motor in your kayak, don't. If you don't want to use a kayak that doesn't look like a kayak, don't. If you want to paddle a sealskin kayak made out of whale bones and sew yourself into it, and you be as hardcore as you can and fish with a hand line, you do that. But just don't vilify the people that do it the other way. But I want to go back to this campfire conversation. What's funny is that back in the day, we all sat around and go, here's what would be awesome if we could do this or we could do that. And the light bulb went off today when I was talking to Jameson, and I was like, how come Jackson didn't like pre-run this little tube for the anchor wizard? He's like, dude, it just really comes down to price. For every little thing you add, that adds $7 and $3 and $14. And by the time it's all said and done, that stuff has to triple by the time it goes from the manufacturer to the retailer, you know, and on to the consumer. So for every little thing you add, it runs the price up, and certain decisions have to be made. You know, Bonafide pre-ran theirs because it's a lot more difficult for where it goes. But with the Jackson, straight up, at first I was like, man, that's kind of crappy. But it took all of 10 minutes to drill the 2 holes. You can reach both sides from the hatch. You don't have to get out your piano wire or your rigging bullets from Yak Attack or do anything fancy. You just put it in there. You pick the side you want it on. And now I'm kind of glad it didn't come that way. So now I don't have holes on the side that I don't want it on. But it's also another one of those things where Jackson and their vacuum came up with running the tube through the hole.
Hans and I talked about that. Actually, it was one of the things I brought up today when we were on the phone. I said, I'll be honest, when I saw the riverboat, even at ICAST, I could tell it had it. And I knew we had already said we wanted it. And at that time, we were still trying to see if we could include it in the boat, or it would be an accessory, you know, depending on how the cost would come out and the labor and everything. And so when I saw that, I was kind of disappointed in the sense, not because like he had the idea before or anything like that, because it was, we both as river anglers realize that anchoring off the bow makes the most sense.
Right.
You face up current, you cast and bring your baits down current. That's how the fish feed. They stage that way, they face that way, and that's how you want to fish it, you know. And so while a drag chain works great to slow you down and stuff, it's still not really the way you fish a river. You want to fish facing into the current. And if you look at drift boats and all these rafts and stuff, they always anchor most time off the bow. And I'm not saying you really want to anchor in moving water, but you want to slow down. If you can get an eddy and you just hold yourself in the eddy, that's where it makes sense. So that was one of the things that, you know, from day one, we were like, we want to be able to anchor off the bow. We want to be able to integrate with Anchor Wizard by being able to mount it to the track and run the lines through the bow. So yeah, when I saw another boat on the market coming out and I could tell right away that it had those pass-throughs, I was like, oh man, that was one thing I thought we were going to be.
It's almost like you've got Ace King and you're playing Texas Hold'em and you're betting and the other person's betting. You both turn your cards over. You're like, ah, dang.
Yeah.
You know,
you both got great hands.
Both got great hands, and neither one of you knew the other one did.
Yeah.
But one thing that I will talk about with the anchor concept on the river that I don't think a lot of people think about is the anchor is a boat position management tool outside of just anchoring. I see people frustrated and commenting on, oh, the boat wants to constantly turn. What's cool about all these river boats is they're going to maneuver, right? They're going to really do a good job of maneuvering. Oh, the one thing that I did forget to give the river credit for that's like its own thing, Han, sorry, but I'll say it now, is the skeg, the drop down skeg.
Yeah, that's good.
That's game changer type thing. That comes from the whitewater world. And it's one of those deals where it makes that boat that's really loose and maneuverable have that ability to lock down when you want it to. What made me think of that is a lot of people don't think about the fact that your anchor can also do that for you. Yeah. So if you're going down the river, you don't always have to drop the anchor to the bottom. If you drop the anchor down and you get about that much in the water, it creates just enough drag that now it's actually taking you down the river and it's almost acting like a guide.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I always leave my drag chain just a little long and let it hang off.
Or you can run the drag chain off the back and it doesn't have to be hitting the bottom. It's just enough to create drag that keeps the back end of the boat from coming around on you. So those two tools are really great tools when it comes to, you know, your ability to manage boat position. In fact, like today when I was talking about, I might take one of the Anchor Wizards and turn it sideways and mount it next to the seat on the inside with the handle, you know, in a vertical orientation. That's because I was thinking I'll run the drag chain off the back and I'm never going to crank it all the way up and crank it all the way down. I just want to get it in the water enough that it creates drag. And a lot of people think the drag chain is only dragging on the bottom, but a lot of times it's just there to create drag to keep the boat from spinning around on you. Right. And so all of these boats having the ability to do that both front and back. But again, that whole integration of that line. And the other reason that it's so important in the front is because we all lay our rods down in the front with the lure dangling up there. And so the more exposed anchor line you have, the more likely you are to catch your hook into it. So one of the things that I did for my Cusa today is I actually took the Dacron thread that we use for steering, and I took the core out of about 6 inches of the Anchor Wizard line. I fed that line inside there, and then I tied it off with braid and melted it with a lighter. So that way I even have a non-porous line up there so that my hooks can't catch in that. And I'm going to kind of play with that and see how that works.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's kind of the conversation that I really wanted to get to, is that we've gone through all these ideas, and lots of us thought of all these crazy ideas years ago, but two things really had to happen. The companies had to get to a place where they're willing to invest, because the anglers needed to be at a place where they're willing to purchase. And we really needed the price points of the boats to evolve up enough that it would carry these ideas.
Right.
And then certain manufacturing techniques and, evolutions needed to have happened, because a lot of us had these ideas 20 years ago, but the technology for making them practical or manufacturable wasn't there. I remember when I first got into kayak fishing, for probably the first 7 years, everybody had the exact same front and side handles. Everybody had the exact same pad eyes. Yeah. Everybody had all the same accessories from the same company, but just changed their boats around. And then the only thing that made your boat an angler boat is where you put the flush mounts. Everything else was.
What we were kind of talking about with campers. How you go in these campers and it can be $100,000 camper or $25,000 camper. It's the same light switches. It's the same.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff is upgraded, but you see a lot of the same stuff because there's these manufacturers, and that's what they make. They make light switches for campers, and they're the leader. And that's kind of where we were with kayaks. Is there was one company that made flush mount rod holders, and there was one company that made this or that, and now the demand and the competition has driven the innovation and paved the way for brands like Yak Attack to come out and things like that, and them to be very successful
and partnerships with like a Yak Attack and a Jackson Kayak, to where a company like Yak Attack that builds and makes molds for injection molded parts, being able to say, yeah, we can make those for you, Jackson Kayak, right? In some cases, and then you do the same on your own. But a lot of people don't understand, like, some of these little injection molded parts, $12,000, $15,000 to $45,000 molds, just to make that one little part. So when you think that there's 3 or 4 of them on a kayak, just to make that one little feature that you love, you got to sell 1,500 kayaks just to break even on that tool.
Yeah.
And you've got to deliver the value add that little thing is worth to the customer to make them be willing to pay, a couple of extra dollars. So let's turn it over to the folks to ask questions about the Cusa. But before we do, let's answer the 4 questions they're probably going to ask first, because we did this today when we shot the video. How long is it? How wide is it? What's its real world weight? And then what's it going to retail for?
Yeah, so it's 11 feet, 8 inches long. It's 36 inches wide, but it's very open deck, so you get a lot of that space in the cockpit area. It weighs 98 pounds, and that's with everything on it. So seat slider, every feature that it comes with. So all the rod rack and anything that it comes with mounted on the boat, that's the total weight. And then the real world capacity, we have it at 425. Chris Funk, if you guys don't follow him at Feral One on YouTube, he did a really good video where he actually took sandbags and loaded the boat to well over 500 pounds and still paddled it without water coming in to the deck at all. So 425 is honestly conservative, but that's where the performance, it's still going to perform the way it's intended to perform, even with 425 pounds in it. So we're really confident. And again, about talking the capacity, yes. Can you put 550 pounds in it? And yeah, sure. But you're going to sacrifice some performance if you do that. Right.
Right.
So yeah, we're not going to put that up there. And then there's the price on the screen, $18.99. So
cool.
Where it's at.
So, all right, guys, that is the Cusa X. That is the river kayak fishing discussion. We got about 10 more minutes. So let's turn it over to some questions. Let's try to keep the questions tonight centered around river kayak fishing. If you've got a question about the challengers or something like that, we'll obviously entertain it. But let's put the majority of our questions about river fishing. Any kayak, any model, anything you want to know. Obviously, if you want to know more about the Cusa X, then Jameson's here to talk about that. But let's just open up the floor. Let's talk about kayak fishing, I guess is what we should say.
Actually, you know what? I'm waiting to see if questions start coming in, but right now they really like the drag chain idea and the knowledge of anchors and things like that helped them out the best.
Cool. Well,
Now,
while
here's a
we're
good one.
questions, okay.
What's the best hand transport cart for those backwater accesses?
Man, I am going to get in trouble for saying. I'm gonna let you answer this question first, Jameson. You go ahead.
When we're talking real backwater accesses, the best cart is no cart.
Okay, so I was gonna act like he was gonna say some cart, and then I was gonna come in and say what he said. But if you're truly going into the backwaters and you're dragging across unprepared surfaces and all those things, the best cart is the bottom of the boat, and just flat drag it, either with the tie down strap kind of crossed over your shoulder through the front handle, an adjustable drag strap. I have found that by far the best tool for me is the adjustable drag strap from Rogue Fishing. I used to use those shoulder straps. The downside of those shoulder straps is if you lose your balance and you fall, you're connected to that boat, or if that boat slips, you're connected to it. So I love putting my hands behind my back and grabbing the handle with both hands. But if the boat slips or falls, or if I slip or fall or something, I'm not connected to that dang thing, getting drugged down the side of a mountain. So
I'm 100% with you on that. I mean, when you're talking like if you have a flat area or sandy beach or whatever, then yes, there's carts that are going to help you, especially like if you're at a boat ramp. Don't be the guy that blocks up the boat ramp for 30 minutes while you load your kayak. Rig the thing in the parking lot, cart it down, and you're good to go. And there's a lot of great carts. I'm actually really excited about the YakTech cart that's coming out to try that out. But yeah, if you're hiking through the woods or dropping it off the side of the road under a bridge, whatever, which is what we love to do as river fishermen, is get that access that other people can't get to because we have the ability to. You're lowering the boat down from behind and letting it slide. You're dragging it, flat. But again, dragging it flat, they have the removable, replaceable skid. Both the River, the RVR, and the Cusa X have those replaceable skid plates on the underside, which are great. But honestly, dragging the boat as flat as possible and it's going to just be like a sled and just kind of go across everything. And you're not going to wear these things.
And it's distributing the wear across the bottom of the whole hole. Whereas when you pick it up, you're doing it across the bottom. A lot of people may have seen this, but if you haven't, just go search. I dragged my kayak 15 miles on my YouTube channel
behind your truck.
So I drug it behind my truck. What a lot of people couldn't see in the video is that we had 2 20-pound sandbags inside of it, kind of representing your black pack or some other gear that's inside the boat. But we drug it 15.2 miles. The only reason we stopped there is because the sheriff lived in my neighborhood and was like, dude, what are you doing? Every time you come by here, it sounds like the world's coming to an end because of the scraping. But after 15 miles, I took that boat out 2 days later and paddled it, and it was perfectly fine. I even drug it on the keel to show how much faster the keel wears down when you've got it localized. I mean, most of us have been a kid where you took a stick and kind of rubbed it back and forth on the concrete and it like sharpens it. Well, that's what happens if you do it at an angle. And I think Matt Kreitz might have asked this question because he reached out to me a couple weeks ago and said that he drugged the keel off of his boat and had the hardware stuck in there. So when we come to Indianapolis in a couple weeks, we're going to have to do a video on how to fix that. But so the answer to that question is the same thing Jameson said. No cart. I thought I was kind of being set up since YakTech just released the new cart and somebody's trying to put me on the spot to say that that's the best cart, which it's going to be a great cart. It's going to be an amazing cart. I've been using the hell out of the catch cart for the last 2 years. And I finally got a screw to come out of it after like towing it behind mountain bikes in my truck and doing videos with it and dropping it down, rock encroachments. I actually dropped it into a lake one time, had to get out there and walk around with my bare feet on until I found it. So there's just a lot of great products out there. Just like we talked about in the kayak fishing competition or kayaking competition, same thing's happening in accessories. So I'm really looking forward to that YakTech kayak cart. In fact, I talked to John from YakTech yesterday. We're going to start a promotion similar to the Toreto Top 10 next month, where you load your 10 best rigging photos to Fishing Chaos, and then we're going to pick winners for YakTech Rigging the Dream giveaway, which is also going to be a lot of fun. And going to be an opportunity for you guys to win some cool prizes. So backwaters, back river. To be honest with you, like anywhere I can get away without a cart, I try to. Even in some parking lots, people go, "Oh man, must be nice to be sponsored. You just drag your kayak like that," and it is. But at the same time, I know that flat dragging it, I've got boats that are 4 years old that I've never drug through, and if I don't drag through it, you probably won't either. So
You'll notice a difference too if you lift the bow and put the weight on the keel. Try to drag it that way, and then try to drag it flat with a strap. I mean, it's night and day. How
yeah,
much
it's just so
easier
much,
it is.
especially if you're talking about backwaters, because you're probably dragging over grass or mud,
Yeah, through roots,
and things that are gonna
whatever.
things are gonna slide real easy. So, yeah, backwaters, no cart. Randy, we lost your audio. Can you hear me?
That's all right. I muted because my kids. Excuse me. We got a good question from YouTube from Colton Taylor Fishing. What's the difference between the Bonafide 117 versus the RVR 119 that makes the RVR better for the rivers?
All right, so that's a really good question because I do think that the RS 117 is a really good riverboat. It's light, it's stable, it's got a 2-position seat, it's got plenty of capacity for bigger anglers like myself or down to the smallest angler out there. But where the river separates itself is this designed specifically to punch through whitewater, vacate that water quickly. It's got a higher weight capacity. It's got a little bit more adjustability in the length of the foot pedals. And it's got a lower profile seat specifically so that you don't put yourself in a compromising position running whitewater. And then it's just got some very river specific designs in it. So I'm not going to say that the RS 117 is not a great river fishing boat because I'm going to be running a lot of guided trips this year on the river, and I plan on putting a bunch of people in the RS 117 unless they want to opt for a more advanced fishing kayak. And that boat is a great river boat. But again, like we talked about in this episode, what's great about the river is it's got a lot of integrated features in it to where a lot of that stuff is not open to get snagged. And the things that you really have to worry a lot more about on a moving water when you're turning the corner and going past a brush pile, that limb reaches down there and grabs that exposed anchor line, spins you around, you can get into a world of hurt really quickly. And so I just think it was a very, purpose-built boat specifically for the river. And it's got some very well thought out features like the skeg that's going to allow you to track when you want to track and not track well when you want to track, whereas the river has got, or the RS 117 has got a double keel in the back and a center keel in the front. So a lot of times with the skinny keel, you run up onto a rock, you get up there and then you're high centered and you're off balance. You turn the wrong way just a little bit and you're out of the boat. One really cool design feature, and we were actually talking about this today, comparing the two holes once we got them on top of the trailer, is that Jackson took the bulbous round, keep the nose up out of the water approach. Bonafide with the RVR 119 took the approach of punch through the wave, vacate the water more quickly. And then on the bottom of the hole, Jackson went with the flat hole all the way down, and Hans went with a really cool little flat patch so that when that boat runs up on a rock, it can kind of sit there, but you're not high centered on a keel to where you end up out of balance. You can just kind of slide up there and you've got a flat, stable spot. And then when you get ready to go down river, you just kind of back pedal off of it a little bit and then keep on going down the river. Yeah. So just a lot of the same concepts, just a different, way to get there. So hope that answers that question, but both are good river boats. I just expect the river to be a great river boat.
All right. This next question is for Jameson. This is from Jeffrey Sullivan. How about talking about standing up in this boat?
Yeah, so that was a big deal. And it even comes down to just how, we talked about the corrugated deck of the boat. If you look at the deck, it's very different than anything we've really done at Jackson. And part of that was we wanted to add a lot of rigidity and strength, especially because it is a wide open platform. So while we've done boats that are 35, 36, even the NAR at 37 inches, the thinner gunnels that we have, like on the Take 2 and the NAR and now the Cusa X, give you this really wide deck area, and it's plastic, right? So it's flexible. But we added that geometry to make it very rigid so that when you do stand on it, you're not going to end up with these like indentions in certain areas that ultimately may hold water or whatever. So that was a big deal. And then also stability. It is a fine line, and a lot of people I don't think know, and I had to learn this, and it took me a while to understand the differences in what we call primary and secondary stability. And so it's a balance. Primary is when you first get in the boat, you initially feel that, or initial stability, you feel it right away, right? It's like you step off a dock onto a boat that doesn't have a lot of that, and you're going to say, well, this boat is not stable. But that's not necessarily true, because it may have a point where it's going to lock in when you get it up on its edge, and that may actually increase the performance when you don't have a lot of that initial stability. But then you have that secondary like lock-in point, which allows you to steer the boat by leaning one way to the other, to be able to maneuver the boat quicker. But a lot of people have never been in a kayak before that come into kayak fishing. I hadn't. I wasn't a kayaker. I wasn't even in a canoe before. I wanted to access water is the reason I got into the kayak. So we wanted you to have that confidence to be able to get in the boat, feel like it was stable, feel confident enough to be able to stand when you get to those fishing areas that are in, calmer water, but still have all the things that it needed to get through the moving water. So we tried to find that kind of perfect balance, if you will, to give you that confidence. And I feel like we got it. I mean, Chad hasn't got to get in the boat yet. So I'm really curious to see his take on what he feels about the stability of the boat and just how rigid the deck is in the boat. For me, I feel like it is, super stable.
Two things I can say up front. I was one of the first people that called this knucklehead and was like, dude, I just got in the NAR. It wasn't the one I got in with Richard because the wind was blowing 40 miles an hour on Guntersville that day, so I didn't really get a chance to evaluate it as best I could. But I jumped in another one. I was like, man, you guys need to do a double check on the deck. This thing might be the softest boat I've ever been in. It was really squishy. Jackson addressed that, made some adjustments to the 22 and into 23 models. But this boat, when we first took it off the trailer, or actually before we put it on the trailer, I set it on the ground. So I was able to stand on it, and it's rock solid.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, like there was almost no flex, and I'm 290 right now, 295. So a big dude, like at the upper end of most kayak anglers. And so the deck was rock solid to the point that the pendulum might have swung in the other direction where they made it a little bit heavier than they need to, just to make sure that there's no flex. But one of the things that I really realized, because again, I don't like to use the stand-up strap for standing up. I think it should be called the sit-down assist strap instead of the stand-up assist strap. So when I stood up, it was super easy. And the big reason that it's super easy is because the cockpit is so open. And one of the factors, and I'll do more talking about this once we get it onto the water, but one of the factors for stability is that you're not forced to have your feet in the middle. A lot of people take these kayaks and they design so much stuff onto the sides, and they keep designing their way in to where, yes, you've got a little bit of an open cockpit, but the gunnels are so tall and your feet are forced to the middle so much that you're standing in the middle. And if you watch like an MMA fight, when they're trying to avoid getting taken down, or when you watch a wrestler, they spread their feet out. That's called a sprawl, so that they're harder to get taken down. So the wider you can get your feet in a boat, the more perceived stability you have, because the more actual stability you have, because you're putting that weight on that outside gunnel, and you're doing what Jameson said, you're engaging that side of the boat. I tell people all the time, we have gone really hard towards designing boats with really strong primary stability, and really strong primary stability. And don't take this the wrong way if you're fit in this category, but we've pretty much put training wheels on kayaks. So when you first get on a bicycle and the training wheels are touching the ground, that way you don't feel unsafe and you just pedal. And then eventually what your parents do is they kind of bring it up a little bit to where you can lean, and eventually that training wheel will hit the ground till you get to the point, then eventually you just take the training wheels off. So high initial stability. And again, we did this with the Bonafide SS127. We went super high because we were designing that boat to the mass kayak angler and for it to feel comfortable to the first person that ever got into it. What's great about these river boats is that pendulum is swinging back in the direction of giving you enough room to edge and turn and pivot and do the things that you need to do once you learn how a high-end riverboat should perform. So
Yeah, it's a balance for sure. I mean, you want to inspire the confidence, you want to have that stability. And I'll be honest, I'm 6 foot tall right now, probably 225. Back then, when I got my first Cusa, which I bought, I wasn't with Jackson, I wasn't on any teams, and I just wanted a river fishing kayak. That is the only Jackson kayak that I have ever turned over since I've owned Jackson. Knock on, is this real wood? Well, knock on wood. But that's the only boat that I've ever turned over. And it was because I didn't know what I was doing. And once I got the hang of it and understood and learning some paddling techniques and stuff, that it actually was a very stable kayak. It's just, I needed to know where my limits were. You know, and we're way further along than that now. And I feel like we have a good balance, you know, very good balance on the Cusa X. But it is a balance. And so, yeah, I mean, I feel very confident in it, but I've been doing this for a long time. So it's, you know, get in these boats, paddle them. You can't beat getting on the water and a kayak and really getting a feel for it. And I would say do it on flat water first. I always tell people this, no matter what kayak it is, get a kayak, take it out on flat water. Don't take any of your rods, dress appropriately, and flip it on purpose. Find that limit. Lean all the way out until the boat flips. See what it takes to get back in it. Same thing when you're standing in a boat. What I like to do is, first thing I want to do is stand up, and then I'm going to slowly transfer my weight, all of my weight, from one side to the other. So I'll put all my weight on one foot on the far side, and then you'll learn where that boat kind of locks in and finds that edge. And it's different for every kayak because every hole shape is a little different. But then you learn that edge. Like, okay, as long as my body, my torso, my head is over the center of the boat, I can put all my weight, all 225 pounds on one foot on the very side of that boat, and it's still not going to turn over because I'm not leaning out to the outside of it. And then you just let the boat kind of move under your feet. You just kind of move your feet and let that weight, if you're going through some ripples or you've got a boat weight coming and you're standing, don't try to like get rigid and fight that thing. Just let the boat do what it's going to do, and you just ride it out with your legs. And it makes a big difference when you just get to that point of comfort. Like, you know, hey, I can let all my weight go to one side and all my weight go to the other side. The boat's still not going to turn over.
Yeah. In fact, you know, with all the experience we have, you know, the first thing I told Jameson was I went and checked a couple of rivers. They're really a lot faster and higher than I'm comfortable going out in a boat that it's the first time I've ever paddled it. So we're going to go get on some flat water. We're going to go down a creek, but we're going to go on a slow moving flat creek, and we're going to take the time to find those edges and find those limitations. He already knows where they are. I don't. So I'm going to go out there with one or two rods. I'm confident that his stagers lock them in nice. I'm going to have my black pack on there, which also is nice and secure. I've got my tether tube for the couple of rods that I may leave in there when I get up and stand up and test that stability. But, you know, even when I've been doing this for almost 30 years, a little over 26 years now, I still follow the same process that I tell you guys to do. I get a new boat. I don't take it right to the extreme and go try to find out what it'll do. I start small, build up on it. And so that's why we're doing these videos where we do the initial walkthrough and overview. So I can kind of wrap my head around what I think the boat's going to do. Then we go out and do the, you know, full day of fishing on the water, initial impressions review. And then finally, the last video that I'll do pretty much with each fishing kayak that I'm doing this year, it's kind of that, okay, I've got some time under my belt. I've got some trips. Here's my final thoughts. Some of my initial impressions are going to be affirmed. Some of them are going to be changed. Some of them I'm going to be dead wrong about. And then we're going to do that consensus at the end with, okay, now that I've tried this boat out, I would recommend this rigging and outfitting for this boat for my type of fishing, but you should probably check out the Jackson Fishing page. You should check out these 3 or 4 anglers to get some different ideas on how you can rig it, join the Jackson, you know, kayak owners group, things like that. But that's the process. So today we did the initial walkthrough and overview, had some very in-depth conversations about the what, when, where, why, and how certain features made it onto the boat, what concessions needed to be made. And then tomorrow we'll take it out. We'll do the flat water thing. If everything is good, we don't get any more rain, and right out of the gate, I'm like, all right, this dude's good. Let's go hit the river. We'll go throw it in the river. We'll do a, you know, 4 to 6 mile float, and we'll test it in that environment. If not, he'll head back to North Carolina. I'll throw that thing in the rotation, and I'll get it out on the river every single time I can until I've got to the point where I've pushed it through class 2s, pushed it through some class 3s, found out what the level of recommendation that I'm comfortable with is to, you know, the consumer that I speak to. and then give that feedback to Jackson. And then the loop starts all over again, So, yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Randy, I think we got time for maybe one more question because we're already over.
Actually, you don't have much time. You only have like 15 minutes that you have to be ready for your next show.
Yeah, so one more time, guys, I am jumping on with Window Fishing Live tonight. I'll get Randy to post the link in the chat. You guys, please do me a favor and share that from my story. Or if you're not a fan of Darren from Window Fishing, go over to his YouTube channel right now. Search Window Fishing. That's 2 L's, WENDELL. Go ahead and subscribe to his channel tonight. Watch the live stream and engage over there and ask some questions. I have no idea what we're talking about. I usually prep for these things. I've been so busy trying to get the trail series ready and the challenge series ready and get all these new initiatives off the ground. I probably am just going to be winging it tonight. So y'all should definitely come check out Window Fishing. Big shout out to Jameson. Y'all go follow him, Jameson Redding, and also check out the Road Trip Angler, which is his new show, adventure series, basically him sharing his experiences and insights. And he's now the Road Trip Angler. I am now the stay home as much as I possibly can and fish around my area angler because I love North Alabama and I'm planning on getting dug in like a tick here, with the exception of going to a few special places each year for kayak bass fishing rallies, fish camps, and those kind of community building events. So
that's why I want to come. That's why I road trip. Is
right.
You guys figure it out, and then I just come follow you around.
Okay. Yeah, you just show up and bow up.
That's exactly
perfect. I like it. Cool. All right, we got one more question, or are we just going to call it a night?
No, sir. You're good. We're ready to rock and
roll.
All
right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. Appreciate each and every one of y'all. If you haven't done so yet, please consider joining KBF. We didn't talk about the Catch 22 Challenge tonight, but the Catch 22 Challenge is gaining steam. We're up over 200 anglers already. Y'all do me a favor. Please consider joining in on the Catch 22 Challenge. You can enter the any 22 fish nationwide, or you can select the state by state. Please read the rules, the very small, simple rules. There's a fun category where you're just entering the number of fish that you caught for the any 22 nationwide. And if you want to be a little bit more competitive, grab yourself an official catch measuring board, follow the KBF rules for a chance to win some certified catches, some trophies, the 100-inch club, the 200-inch club, the 300-inch club, the 400-inch club. We're going to build a sick trophy for the person that can catch the biggest 22 fish of the entire year. And right now, as it sits, we've got over $26,000 in prizes. Our grand prize may end up eclipsing $15,000 by itself. And if that's the case, and I'll have that nailed down in a couple of weeks, that means we're already over $30,000 in total prizes, $22 entry fee. We're putting 50% of it back into buying more prizes. We didn't do that last year with the exception of about $1,500. So just imagine if we only had the $500 we had last year, we'd be putting $5,000 at our cost back into the series, which is almost $10,000 at retail. So again, consider joining. I'm putting the proceeds for that this year towards Heroes on the Water. I'll continue to wave the flag for Mission 22, but I wanted to switch my focus to more grassroots on the water, getting those butts in boats, and really being able to do what I personally have the most experience with, which is connecting with anglers, getting out on the water, and having a good time. So, yeah, thank you guys. Y'all have a good night, and go check out the video that we just released earlier today where Chris Riley actually came down, picked up his Old Town Sportsman Autopilot 120, which was the grand prize last year. Super stoked about it, and even shot us a video of him getting out on the water for his maiden voyage when he drove through all those crazy storms to get back to Virginia the other day. So anyway, y'all leave a comment there. Congratulate Chris. Sign up for the Catch 22 Challenge if you can. Join KBF if you want to support the channel. And we'll see you guys in the next video.
All right. See you guys next week.
Like 12 minutes. So, yeah. All right. Love y'all. Hey guys, I'm Chad Hoover with Kayak Bass Fishing. If you're looking to get in on the exciting sport of kayak fishing yourself, check out kayakbassfishing.com. Yeah! Boom! Oh, yes!
What a freaking toad.
So whether you want to find out more about competitive kayak fishing and kayak fishing tournaments, or just looking to learn more to make yourself a better angler, head over to kayakbassfishing.com and join today.